things cranked up in there for us. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone here. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 6:01. I'll call to order the Keystone Heights Airport Authority monthly meeting. Ask everyone to please stand for prayer and the pledge of allegiance. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this beautiful day you've blessed us with. We give you praise for all of your love and grace and mercy to each of us. Thank you for helping us tonight. Give us wisdom, give us understanding of all that we do to take care of the airport. Thank you for our staff. Thank you for these board members, and thank you for this opportunity we have to serve in our community. We give you praise for all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And if you haven't already, please make sure your phone is on vibrate or mute. And roll call, please. Oh, he didn't come. He didn't see. I thought he'd come back in.
Not yet.
He slipped back out. All right. We'll wait just a minute or so. City council meeting last night.
Smooth, non-eventful, quick. We got there in 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Just for my reference, I apologize. I'm making copies of the other thing for the, was it the minimum operating standards that you had?
Yeah, there was just that one, thing, so there's a copy of that.
Is it the same thing?
Yeah, there's 3 pages to the set.
Yeah.
Everybody get a copy.
Brown came in today and he was talking about those wooden chairs. Evidently, that's what used to be in the city council room. Yeah, he wanted to repossess them.
So there's just 2 pages here, Rex, if you would take 2 and pass it down, please.
I told him, I said, you couldn't have any of those back. They gave them away years ago and didn't want them, so.
Last night we met in the pavilion and we had them on little wooden stools and there's no back. The whole seat's like this and it went quick. So I told him that's what we're putting in the council.
Secret.
Same thing here, just pass them down.
Yeah, pass that down there.
No.
So it's 2 pages per.
Yeah, it's just 2 pages.
I did make extra copies for
Yeah.
Bill and Frank and.
Yeah. Does Rex have one?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so this is mine. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had them over there.
Giving it all away.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Okay. Craig, you want to do roll call?
Yes, Mr. Kirkland.
Here.
Mr. Pryor.
Here.
Mr. Dagenet. Mr. Ludwig.
Here.
Mr. Seamer.
Here.
Ms. Hall.
Here.
All right, we'll let the record indicate or show that we do have quorum tonight, so we'll continue with our agenda. Do you have any public comment cards?
I do not.
All right. The consent agenda, You received that in your packet that Craig had sent out earlier in the week, or actually, I guess.
Friday.
Yeah, Friday. So the consent agenda will consist of approval of the April 2024 financials, as well as approval of the May 7th, 2024 Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports, Mr. Prang.
Okay, good evening, members of the board, the public. We've got two items for you tonight. The first one is change order number 2 for the replace runway 1129 edge lighting, signs, reels, and PAPIs project. Construction has been done for several months. The system's been operational. This final change order reconciles final costs and credits to and from the contract. There's two main items in this that are detailed for you in a document called the Finding of Fact. I think it's in your package. If you look down, one of the items was when we originally bid the project, we inadvertently referred to the edge lights as high intensity edge lights. And because it was written that way in the contract, that's what the contractors bid. In fact, we intended medium intensity lights, which cost a little bit less. So there are 53 lights that were supplied as medium intensity, and there's a $102 credit per light that's credited back to the amount. It's deducted from the contract amount. The other items are various adjustments to quantities for electrical items, cabling, conduit, counterpoise, and the seed and mulch work item. Some are deductions, some are additions. There's a spreadsheet in there. You can kind of read down the quantity add, quantity delete column if you're interested in all that detail. But the net effect of this change order is to decrease the contract value by $9,701. So the new contract amount with TCA Electric would be $641,000.
$699.
Thank you, $699. That's a 6 or an 8.
Yeah.
I can't tell from over here, but thank you, Craig. What's the name of that eye doctor again?
He retired.
I don't know. So, as I said, the project's done. We've got one more closeout document to produce. Craig's got a final payment to process to the contractor and do all the just final reimbursement from the FDOT, and then this project will be done and in the books. This is probably the last action the board has to take, is to consider this final change order. Any questions?
All right,
I'll make a motion that we accept change order number 2 on the runway lighting project for a decreased amount of $9,701 for a total of $641,699.
I'll second.
all right. No questions or no discussion for Mr. Prang? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Second item is consideration for the board to submit a grant application package to conduct a master plan update, which will include update of the Exhibit A property map and an update of the ALP, the airport layout plan. I think I briefed the board on this once before just to tell you this was coming. We're in the regular FAA funding cycle where they want to receive requests for grant funding in the May-June timeframe. They're already been aware of the project because we meet with them on an annual basis. So as far back as January, they knew the project was coming. So this is really the culmination of the planning to initiate a master plan project. Your master plan is a little over 10 years old. The recommended cycle for a master plan update from the FAA is every 5 to 10 years, depending on activity and development movement. So you can see you're a little outside the 10-year time frame. No penalty for that. You've been executing your master plan pretty well, actually. There hasn't been a lot changed since the master plan was last conceived, but the FAA does desire to fund and have you update your master plan on that site. The two other components, the ALP, again, I'm using an acronym, that's Airport Layout Plan. That includes, I think in your set, it's maybe 12 drawings. One of them is the basis for this drawing down here. It's a depiction of all the development conditions, but it also includes graphic depictions of land use, a zoning status, and all of the various airspace and approach templates, which show all 4 runway ends, locations of obstructions, what approaches are available, what approach values are being maintained. So the whole set consists of about 12 sheets. The number one of which is that airport layout plan drawing that you're probably most familiar with. We'll have 4 sub-consultants that support us in this work. One of them is a surveyor. They'll be updating the Exhibit A property map. The FAA has very specific rules on how your property map is formatted and how it's depicted, the purpose of which is for you to give assurance to the federal government that you own the land upon which the airport sits, and that when you do projects with their funding, the projects are within your property. So it's kind of a big check mark for them. So the Exhibit A property map is updated. It can be updated more often, but you haven't had any land transactions. So in this case, that's a relatively simple task, just to review, get an updated title search since the last one was done, and update the map. Another one is an aerial, a controlled aerial survey, which will use aerial photography and orthogonal controls so that any obstructions within the airspace can be identified. For the most part, that's trees, but that data, I think the last time you have an aerial survey published is 2008, actually. I checked that, I think Craig and I checked that in the FAA's database. So the purpose of that is primarily so that you and the FAA can know what's the status of your airspace. It's checked annually when the DOT comes out to do your inspection, but there are places, other airports, where structures, towers, other facilities crop up around the airport and you don't know about them. So knowledge of them and being able to adjust and plan for future flight procedures and non-instrument approach improvements to your published approaches, all that is driven out of the controlled aerial survey. So we have a sub who specializes in that work. They do it all over the United States. They'll be supporting us on that. We have a sub that's going to do the title search. That's a very small task. And then the 4th task is also relatively small, but the federal government, in its wisdom a couple years ago, started requiring a recycling plan to be accomplished for every airport with a master plan. It has less relevance at an airport like yours where activity, I think you probably already are recycling where it's appropriate or where it's cost effective. It has great applicability at a major commercial service airport where hundreds of thousands of people move through the facility every day and they're generating recyclables. It's less important here. We actually requested to exclude it from the contract, but the FAA came back and said it's required by policy, so we are providing it. And as with many things like that, there's a specialty subconsultant that does just that for airports. So we work with them. It's a really efficient way to accomplish the task without spending a lot of money on it, is getting someone that just does that as their daily work. So just to be clear, that was an overview of the description. You're not approving the master plan task tonight. In fact, I don't recommend the board approve that until you actually know you're going to get the funding. We probably won't start this task until November. That is predicated on you getting a grant probably in August or September. So there won't be any need to authorize the task order to us until you actually know you're going to have the grant in hand. This is just requesting the grant funding. So let me just drill down now into the funding, and then I'll stop talking and let you ask questions. There's three main components in the funding request. The biggest one is the AECom fee to produce the master plan and all the other documents I mentioned. The cost of that is $592,523. We're also requesting $3,000 so that you could be reimbursed for the cost of the independent fee estimate that Craig obtained in the last 2 weeks. And then for a grant of this size, you're allowed to include up to $10,000 as an administrative cost. You probably won't spend all of that $10,000, but if for some reason someone requested copies of a draft part of the master plan and you had to get copies made, you could document that and get reimbursed. If for some reason you don't have a big public involvement effort planned, if you don't think it's going to be needed, but if for some reason a member of the public wanted to have a meeting at a location, and you had to rent the facility, that would be covered under the administrative costs. So that's just two kind of typical examples of what's available for you, so you don't have to come out of pocket as an agency to complete the master plan. So the total project cost is $605,523. We're requesting the FAA fund 90% of that, $544,971. And we've already secured from the FDOT a 10% share, which is $60,552. The FDOT doesn't have a 180-page package that they require you to submit to get their 10%. So again, just to restate, the purpose of the presentation is to request concurrence from the board to submit this package to the FAA and request funding in the amount of $544,971.
544,971.
Yes, sir. That's the amount of the federal grant we're requesting.
But you're not you are requesting above requesting the grant, so you have to include that money
Yeah.
or that amount.
And just to be clear, 90% FAA funded, 10% FDOT funded. Nothing but your own effort has to be expended from airport staff and the board to accomplish the task. Master plan, this is probably an 18 to 24 month undertaking.
Okay.
Any questions?
I got a question, but I'll ask you afterwards. I'll make a motion to have AECom go ahead and submit the FAA grant application for the master plan, ALP, and property map update in the amount of $544,971.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Toast?
Will there actually be survey work done?
Not likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only reason I ask is trying to establish the property lines between Camp Crystal and the airport after it had all been cut was next to impossible because there were no markings out in the field anymore. And if they were going to survey, they could at least flag the corners.
Yeah. So, Frank, because you're a surveyor, I'll give you a little more than what everybody else. Thanks, by the way. I love this kind of thing.
You knew that would come from a survey.
There was field survey done.
Right.
With the previous master plan. Joe Knapp did it with support, I think, from Roger Mullins, two local surveyors. To our knowledge, nothing has changed. There've not been any acquisitions.
Correct.
Or sale of property. It didn't seem reasonable to us to spend any money on field survey. So we have an office survey task, which will be done by a sub-consultant of ours. She kind of specializes in just reviewing survey, compiling the data, putting it in the FAA's preferred format. The previous master plan was done prior to the FAA issuing a whole new batch of guidance. So your current Exhibit A property map is accurate. It accurately depicts the property you own, but it's not formatted to meet the standard operating procedure document of the FAA. So the cost associated with that desk or office surveying is to review the data, repackage it. If for some reason we did have to recover a monument, or Frank, the policy is if we were to go out and do it now and we couldn't find a monument, our surveyor would set a monument. But we're not planning to do that. We don't think it's necessary. Did I answer your question?
Sure.
All right, any other questions? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Now, I do have a question.
Motion carries.
So I don't recall even being on the board the last time this was done, but they do these in 5-year increments, different phases. This is part of what this is, right?
The development plan?
Right.
Yeah, we do year 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and then 11 to 20.
So my question is, how do you know, or your firm, how do they know, or your subcontractors know what our needs may be? Do you just try to look at other airports and see what they're doing? Or do you look at what the community's doing, the growth, or how's it determined that you think we're gonna need a taxiway somewhere new now?
So predominantly, that's going to come from you. from
Okay,
Greg,
so you'll work with the airport
Greg and
manager.
Rob, and we may, I don't know if the board will choose at the time to maybe elect a member of the board to support staff.
Okay,
And we'll report back to the board as often as you want. But it is a combination of what we know as airport standards. The biggest part of an AOP is standards. Runways and taxiways are a certain width. Safety areas are prescribed distances. You can and can't have intersecting taxiways in certain configurations. So you do have a few non-standard conditions.
right,
Sometimes a non-standard condition can be resolved. Other times, we would document in the master plan why the resolution is either worse. It creates another non-standard, like we could fix this, but now we have 2 non-standards because we had to fight, we created another problem. Or we would try to justify a modification to the standard as part of the process.
so just as an example, I think you said that they had to do it at Gainesville where they had to separate, I guess it's 725 and,
11. Yep. Runway 7 and runway 11 touched the pavement physically.
so that might happen to ours here in
It's
this
on your
review.
master plan now.
Okay,
It's called, the project is called decoupling.
okay,
It's more important at commercial service airports, but there is an initiative within the FAA for any airport with 2 runways or more than 1 runway. If you have runway ends that physically touch, the pavement touches, there should be an effort to decouple them. It minimizes or reduces or eliminates, in some cases, the opportunity for a pilot to make a wrong surface departure. You can go look up Kentucky Bluegrass wrong surface
I remember
departure
that was terrible.
and realize why they did this.
Right.
So it was just a situational awareness there was confusion and human error, and they took off on a runway that was too short. It's not as important here. Your runways are both nearly equidistant. They have similar utility, meaning the width is similar. So it's on your master plan, but when we did this 10 years ago, they said put it in year 11 to 20. So it's in there, but it wasn't something that the FAA pounded to say you have to fix this problem.
Okay,
So there's a bit of just playing the process to see how they approach it this time around.
okay,
That issue has, moderate scrutiny, less scrutiny at a facility like yours.
okay,
So a lot of the development opportunities come out of a standards review and a compliance review. We have to study all of your runway safety areas to make sure you don't have grading that's out of compliance or structures that shouldn't be there. But the bigger part of like future development would come from discussions with Craig and Rob, and again, if a member of the board gets designated,
okay. I was
and
just
our own
curious.
ingenuity.
Okay,
The goal of something, I will tell you, Scott, maybe this is beyond your answer, but the goal of a task like this is always like an underlying method is help the airport be self-sustaining. I say that knowing that I've been doing this 37 years. I've rarely had airports that could self-fund their own projects. There are a few in the current climate where airports have so much more commercial passenger activity. They have money hand over fist, and they are accelerating some of their own projects at their own cost. But most everybody with multi-million-dollar development programs are relying on the states and federal government to do that. And we'll probably continue to do that here for the most part. But I think in the last 5 years or so, people who have been here long enough can, attest to the fact that when you are self-sustaining and you operate in the black, when things happen and need to be done, you can take care of some issues with your own resources, and that's important. So helping you develop areas that are leasable for the highest and best value is a stated goal of a master plan, both for aviation and non-aviation uses,
Okay.
with an emphasis on aviation.
So with respect to your question, but Craig and I and Bill had a Teams meeting with Howard,
Howard Klein is our lead planner.
and we had some discussions about some of the future things that we might want to see included in the master plan this time around. One was looking at our lake property that we have. How would that play within the master plan? And then with the completion of the master plan for our forestry, how would that incorporate as well in that? So there's some more things this time around that we're talking about and talk with Howard about, because he has a lot more expertise with taking some of these areas that we were showing him and then being creative with, okay, here's what you could do with this. And then again, with his FAA experience, he knows what the FAA will agree to and, frown upon. So there's a little bit discussion that's happened in that area, but obviously more needs to happen, so.
And in the end, the FAA and the FDOT both have to approve the document. And after both of them approve it, we always ask the airport board or municipality to adopt it. That's more of a procedural matter, but just because you have it approved, if you've adopted it, it becomes more of your standard, it's your living document. And, it gives you, I'll just say this again, we do this all the time every year when we meet with both agencies. One of the first questions is, hey, we want to do this project. Is it in your master plan? So you can't, out of thin air, develop a $10 million project in year 2 that wasn't already conceived in the master plan. They would tell you no in a heartbeat. It's not approved. It's not in your approved master plan. We're not funding it.
So one might say it's almost like a wish list you're putting on paper, that it is a reasonable wish.
Yeah.
And if you get to do it, you get to do it, but it's better, you've got to have it in there before you can even entertain discussion about it.
Correct. And that's why it's a 20-year horizon.
Okay.
And you update it theoretically every 5. Here, you're going to update it every 10 years. I can't imagine a scenario that would trigger the need for a 5-year update. And if that happens in 5 years, I'll be happy to say I was wrong, because that means we have a lot of growth. Yeah, you're cracking at that point. But the first 5 years is projects that are pretty certain, because both agencies look at a 5-year funding cycle.
Right.
So your first 5 years of projects, you're pretty certain they're going to happen. They might move around. Something from year 3 might go to year 4, but those are your projects. Year 6 to 10 is more, this is what we think we can see coming to meet demands and to meet pavement preservation and large rehab needs. A year 11 through 20 is more like, what do we think we want to be in the future? So I would say the wish list part is more in the year 11 through 20 plan. That's where things like a runway extension usually land, an ILS approach, things that would be great to have, but a lot of dominoes have to fall before those things become viable in terms of the funding agencies.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that.
It's going to be a fun process.
Sure. And you said it'd take about 24 months?
Yeah, Howard says 18, and I always add 6 months because I know the FAA is slow.
Okay.
So 18 to 24 months, and we'll be ready to start November 1st. So assuming the funding comes through. So
Okay.
we'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Prain. All right, moving on. Items that I have, I want to address one item. I'm going to take it out of order here because Mr. Prain has asked if he could leave as soon as possible. I got with Bill, actually this came about, the revising our minimum operating standards, Chapter 3, C2 and Exhibit E. During a discussion about the feasibility study for the water sewer, as we were walking through some of those requirements, Bill brought up the fact that we needed to make sure that in our MOS that we had some specific verbiage that dealt with the type of construction. So what you have there under the site development, that's section C. If you look down there, to what's in red there is the verbiage that I'd gotten with Bill on to add to our MOS. It deals with the non-combustible construction, Florida Building Code, and then a type 230 National Fire Protection Association. And then the other issue was for any facility, hangar, whether it be a bulk hangar or another building, and if it was housing hazardous materials or operations and it exceeded 12,000 square feet, then it would require sprinkler and foam systems. So I asked Bill to hang around in case you had any questions about this revision to our MOS.
Well, I do have a question. So as I recall, and I may be incorrect, when Rockland was talking about extending the maintenance hangar out, remember they were going to come out in front of the hangar, just come straight out where they could get 2 aircraft in there. That's in Clay County, and I think Clay County was going to require them to put sprinklers in there. Does this supersede, does it walk with the county's requirements, or does it exceed? I mean, this sounds like as long as the building is non-combustible, meaning a steel building or cinder block.
I think it's two different things, Scott. I don't think the two sentences are necessarily interdependent. The first one is just stating use non-combustible materials.
Okay,
And parenthetically, in the utility feasibility report, we offered that this building is non-combustible.
okay,
It's concrete slab, structural steel framing, and gypsum wallboard, as opposed to wood framing, which would be combustible.
well, I guess a better way.
It's not that hard to do. In a hangar, a typical type 2 3-aught is a metal building with no combustible.
Maybe I should rephrase that. So this is just a minimum standard, but if Clay County has a requirement that exceeds this minimal standard,
You gotta meet
we've got to follow the county's code.
Yes.
Okay,
And the 12,000 square foot and hazardous operations, that's aside from combustible construction. It's a separate requirement that's driven by an FPA. And my guess is, if you were to build that facility today, you'd have to do that. But it wasn't required when it was originally built. But I would not be surprised if you had a major renovation to an existing hangar, they would make you retrofit the whole hangar to meet the current fire
you
protection.
know what it might have to do with too, because when you guys get in hazmat, a lot of those hazmat standards are based on quantity. So if a small twin-engine airplane's in there, it doesn't have that much fuel in it, but you got a P3 over there that's got 3,000 gallons, maybe that's where the,
It has to do with the size of the hangar.
oh, that's what it is based on the square foot.
Is the square footage of the hangar, and or are you doing any hazardous operations? Welding, doping, painting,
Okay,
those types of hazardous operations. And I think the reason it's on square foot, Scott, you might only have one small airplane in there, but in a hangar that's 20,000 square feet, you can put 40 of them in there.
right,
So
well, that's true
now
too.
Now it's a problem. So
Okay.
it's just a square foot requirement.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Prang? All right, do I hear a motion to approve revising minimum operating standards, chapter 3, section C2, and the exhibit also, I didn't call that to your attention, but the second page there, basically what we had to do is remove Maria Searcy's name and add Craig Kuhn there and his email address. So those are the two changes that we're talking about.
I'll make the motion to accept the changes.
Okay, have a motion. Do I hear a second? All right. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. My first item, because a lot of the public watch our meetings online, I think it's really important that we make sure that the information that gets shared during the meeting is as accurate as possible. Last month, during the discussion of the supplemental agreement 27 for the West Side Service Road Fence Project, Mr. Seaman made the following statement. He said, "We're spending a lot of my money, your money, everybody's money, not free money, taxpayers' money." And that's referenced, if you want to see that, just go to the May 7th video at 1 hour, 13 minutes and 12 seconds into the meeting. And I just want to make sure we all understand where we get our funding from. And one of the things that drove this home was when Craig and I did a presentation last week for the Lake Region Partners. We did our video and we have a PowerPoint presentation that includes these slides that you've got a copy of. I had 3 city residents come up to me that are a part of that group and tell me how much they appreciated knowing that our funding was from the FAA and FDOT and not from the city. Because they were under the impression, because the city owns the airport, the city's having to come up with all these millions of dollars to do these projects out here. And they didn't know any different. So what I wanted to bring to the board, because we have new board members here. So in your handout there, and I just mentioned, and you've heard Mr. Prang, we've all had this conversation. We get funding from the FAA and also FDOT. That comes from the Florida Aviation Grant Program and the FAA. And so here's where they get their money. If you look on the next slide, what you'll notice there is that the Florida Aviation Grant Program since 1983 has been funded through aviation fuel taxes, and that is currently at 4.27 cents per gallon. 92% of the aviation fuel tax gets deposited into the State Transportation Trust Fund. The remaining 8% gets deposited into the General Revenue Fund for the state. So that's where FDOT gets their money. For the FAA, if you look at the next slide, provides funds through the Airport Improvement Program. That is funded. The Airport Improvement Program is funded through the Airport and Airway Trust Fund, which consists of taxes and user fees on airline tickets, international passenger departure fees, and fuel taxes. So when we talk about receiving funds here at the airport, that's where these monies are coming from. It's not city tax money, it's not county ad valorem tax money of any sort. It's strictly these funds here. So I wanted to make sure that our board understands that. And as I say, when we did that presentation and had those folks from the city come up, city residents come up and say, wow, it's kind of like they were relieved, literally, because they go to a lot of the city council meetings too, and they hear the conversation that goes on about budget and about projects and about dollars. So I want to share that and just clear the air to make sure that everybody that watches online realizes too that that's how we get our funding here at the airport. Any questions?
Yeah, where was the correction what was my erroneous statement? I said it was our tax dollars, and the FAA is funded by our tax dollars, correct?
It's funded by those items that are listed there.
That's the only place that the FAA gets their money? They're not part of the...
For their airport improvement program.
I didn't say that. I said the FAA. Where does the FAA get their money? Who funds the FAA? We do, our tax dollars. If it wasn't for the FAA, there would be no airport improvement fund.
Well,
Okay,
During the discussion, though, we were talking about all of the 200,000 that the FDOT was giving us to move the gate and put the new gate in. And
Right.
fences in. So
and,
I just wanted to clear the air.
okay, and I did a little research myself. And I asked Craig tonight how much fuel tax was on our fuel that we sell. Do you know how much it is?
Same
A
as
gallon?
everybody else.
About 25, 26 cents.
26 cents a gallon.
And fuel taxes,
Yeah,
But they're broken down between state and federal
right.
taxes.
So it's still, I didn't make an erroneous statement. I made a factual statement that it is funded because FDOT is funded by fuel tax. I got it all broken down right here, if you'd like to read it, and you can educate yourself on it. And it says, it comes from some sales tax. So without those departments, which is funded by tax dollars, and then the sales tax, as you said right here, on fuel tax. Okay? So I don't see where I made a wrong statement. I don't think it's erroneous.
Well, it is. I just want to clear the air to make sure that everybody that hears, and when we talk about the FAA or FDOT, that's where those monies come from.
I never said anything different
Okay,
than that. You got it. You said exactly where it was on the tape. Go back and look and listen and see what I said. I never said anything about that. I said it was our tax dollars.
Okay.
And that is where it's coming from, period. So I would like to have it corrected that I didn't say something erroneous.
Well, that's your opinion, and I have mine. Because we've had this discussion before. What we want to make sure of is people don't think that, especially in Bradford County, because that's in Bradford County, because I've had people at county commission meetings want that clarification too. They want to make sure that their county, because they're a poor county, they want to make sure that those dollars aren't coming from the county for anything they do here at the airport.
Nowhere did I say ad valorem taxes. I said our tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes on everything that we do.
Okay.
Every time we drive, we're paying those taxes.
But those taxes off gasoline goes to a road tax.
Not
It's
all
coming
of
to
it.
this
I'll give you this and I'll let you read it.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'd be glad to see it. All right, moving on. The second item, bylaw revisions, Article 2, Section 3. As we found out earlier, a couple of months ago, and to find out if, as we have to do our required ethics training, there was a statement in our bylaws also that we were also to complete forms 1 and or 6. I think it says 1 and 6. We heard from the Ethics Commission directly, and they said that because we're a special dependent district, then we're not required to do Form 1 and Form 6. So basically what we've done there is we've revised that and we've removed that verbiage about Forms 1 and 6. Any questions?
I do have one quick question. And on that same thing, because it talks about the ethics part of it in the beginning of that, and I know in our last board meeting, we talked about having to be registered. And I don't know if the word had gotten, I think it was brought up that the city manager was going to,
League of Cities.
yeah, register us for that. So I don't know.
I know that the city clerk has made attempts to register you guys as well as myself. I tried about 18 times a day to log on and initiate. We're not there yet. I asked her if there was like a video everybody could watch. There's a 4-hour video. Here's what I know we all have to do. We have to watch a 4-hour video. I actually attended it in person at the city and county managers conference last week, and they scanned my little barcode on my ID, kind of like cattle, going in. But you all need to watch that video, and I would suggest send Craig an email, and you can roll up an email and send to Florida Commission on Ethics. Because it's all on the honor system.
Right.
The Army videos make you watch it and then give you a test and make sure you're awake through the whole thing. But so you guys have to exercise, that individual responsibility. But I guess my question to you is, if you can't get to the video, let me know and I'll figure out a way to.
I think I sent that video to you last fall, didn't I?
You did, and,
Would that work? Would that suffice for the year?
The good thing about the League of Cities ones is when you log in, when you complete it, it automatically updates their records that you've done it.
Okay.
it didn't.
There is a difference between Florida League of
I think you
Cities
just had to
being able to log in there.
I don't
you
think
try
it
to-
does that, Scott, anymore.
No,
They've done away with that?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, we were
We were gonna send you a document at the end last year when I did it.
Yeah, and they did.
And I never got the document.
Certificate. It's a certificate that they used to send out when you completed the course, but then they stopped doing that too. So I think it all hinges back. The lady from the Ethics Commission said that they had the city listed. The airport authority was not listed, so we would have to register through the city.
Let me make sure, write that down.
The
Use your
ethics
paper.
site.
Right, and that's
For that
where I was
training.
going with that,
Yeah.
is do we have to be registered before we can even access and get into it?
My understanding, for that you do, but you could still go look at the other video, probably the one that Rex got from Craig. And again, like Charlie said, it's all on the honor system. So what we've done in the past is we would notify the airport manager that we completed it, and then he keeps a record. So if there's ever a question about it, he's got documentation.
So you're going to send it to us, right? You did
All this.
You're in charge now.
I think I still have it, if we don't get it.
Sure.
Would the one from last year, if we watched it again, would that suffice for this year?
I will make every effort to get you the current. I can't speak for the Commission on Ethics.
That is a link or something?
If it was that easy, I would have already sent it. I haven't been able to get it like
I think the issue.
out of the cloud or wherever the heck it sits.
The latest version, because if
Okay.
there's any law, if there's any changes, then that needs to be, probably, League of Cities would have that latest version that would include all of that, so. Because I know there are some videos out there, you can go to YouTube and just search on that, and you can find a Florida ethics video. Not sure about its currency.
All right, well, I'll probably be picking up the phone and talking to somebody tomorrow at the League of Cities and the Ethics Commission, just make sure this is hammered out. Nobody's
Craig and I
Tails
can
in a
give you
crack.
the lady's name from the ethics commission. I think we copied you on that.
Yeah, I talked to one of them yesterday, but I
Okay.
was talking about my own stuff. I wasn't worried about y'all.
Thanks. All right.
You're going to release Mr. Prang. He looks like he's at the gates, ready to charge.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
He's waiting for the okay.
Does anybody else have another agenda item?
Be safe.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
See you.
All right, so we need a motion, a second, to remove or to up the bylaw revision to remove the verbiage out forms 1 and 6.
So moved.
Wait a second. Who said, Rex? Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. The last thing I have is board member duties and responsibilities. Craig and I have been talking about, the board, we're getting a new person coming on And that's going to change things a little bit only because before it's the guard. Now we'll have another person that will be on our board. And so Craig and I are going to revisit all of the tasks, if you will, and titles of our board members, and then bring that back to you guys, ladies, for, review and some input there. Because again, it's a major change for the charter, major change for us and not having the guard here. So we need to do that. So I just want to make y'all aware that we're working on that, and we'll be bringing something back to the board with respect to that.
And I don't know if this is like jumping way ahead, but it's kind of like we kind of got into it a little bit or talked a little bit about this in the last meeting last month, but like creating kind of like an orientation program for board members, because I think it would be extremely helpful to be able to know what documentation is out there that's, that basically we're living by. And that's kind of how this, I think, some of it started to come up was because of that. And I think it'd be really important. So that way, at least we all have everything up front. Here's the bylaws, here's the minimum standards, here's whatever other things it is that we need, and even having an orientation day to be able to go around and see the airport. Now, I will say I did have that opportunity when I first came out here and kind of had a field trip day there, and thank Mr. Fryer for that. I appreciate that. And it was very beneficial, to kind of start to kind of learn the ropes a little bit out here. But as far as some of the other type of items and all, that'll be extremely helpful to be able to have that ready for any new board members that come along. Kind of dump it in their lap and say, all right, here's your homework.
Yeah, we had some things that were, we all used to have notebooks, they were manuals, and now it's just easier to put it on your laptop and have that. But we did an orientation one time, I think, when you and Rex first came on, and we looked at, maybe, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, yeah.
Well, even if it's on the computers, even having an orientation with the computer saying, this is where these items are at. And it was kind of like, here's the computer. And then, it will help, especially for someone that
And I
doesn't.
think there's some things outside of just the MOS, the bylaws, that, like you say, just getting a ride around the airport, learning about what a T-hanger is. I mean, because some people that don't have any aviation experience, they don't even know what a T-hanger is. So.
Anybody can call me at any time and set that up. Like, we don't have to do a whole meeting over looking at T-hangers. Just call me.
Right, right. We may have to do a workshop, though, to kind of go through, this process of orientation. I mean, Terry is a good example. She's newest, and give her an overall, if it's 1,000-foot view of what goes on and what we're responsible for. So I think that's where we're going. So for now, what we'll have the chair, vice chair, we'll have natural resources, we'll have security. The other areas, we're gonna just put them in a holding pattern for right now, and then think about what we're gonna, for the new position coming up, how that'll be designated. So anyway, just a heads up on that, that's coming. All right, that's all I had. Moving on down to Mr. Ludwig.
The items here, the first one I have is the airport security plan submitted and approved. Me and Craig had worked on some of the more recent updates with staffing changes. And we had to go through and just kind of sort through a few items and all, but we're able to work together on that and to get the necessary changes and have it submitted. And Craig has some good computer skills there, so he was able to put it all together and use the package that he was able to find on file and send it in, and then we got back a letter of approval. So that will move the date now beyond what it originally was, because the date of the new changes there starts the 2-year period on that before it rolls back around again. So that actually there was a lot on that. When I first came in, it immediately had been sent in, and then we had started having some staffing changes, and then I had to sit down with Mike, and then we went over some of those, and then now the same with Craig. So It starts at the date that we submitted, and I don't have the date with me right off the bat, but it was here just very recent, so.
May 23rd.
Okay, yeah. So that's the first one there. An AED update, I did talk to, looked into a few different resources there for AEDs, and there's one that's still kind of in the works here, and I'll start out with this one there. Me and Mr. Van Zant had been in discussions, and he made me aware that the county potentially has a grant that they're looking at being able to utilize, so for Clay County being able to get a new AED possibly for their pavilion, so that we might be able to jump on to that as well. So
They put the city down for 4, and I earmarked one of them to come in this FBA.
Oh, great.
Great.
So
Thank you.
there were some questions there that I had addressed with it and all, and then we'll just continue to work with that there, and I'll get back with you on some of those. But I was able to talk to another gentleman that works for, with Bradford County, and I believe he works for a company there that refurbishes them, and they'll turn them around and put them out to where, you know, you can basically buy it straight out, and then you pay for all the cost of the different, and there's not a lot of upkeep to them, but they do have pads and batteries that expire. So that's something that will potentially be a cost, you know, but that's something that could be years at a time.
So if I have a heart attack, you want me to use a used remanufactured? I don't mind buying them, it's on TV that's been refurbished, but.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to do was at least kind of try a couple different things. And then also, Lindsay was very generous there to look at what they had at MHD Rockland and provide me with the information. And they go through a service, and they basically have a yearly service and inspections and all that come along with that and all. So there are 3 different ones to look at, but this one with the county looks like it may work out and be potentially what we'll be able to do.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah, thank you.
plan A, B, and C.
And the other thing, if they have to have a service plan as well, maybe we could piggyback with that and pay a portion or something.
Yeah, Mr. Ludwig sent me some really good questions that I haven't followed up on yet. But I think it's another fireman on the other end that works for the county manager that I'm dealing with, so y'all will speak that language together.
All right, and then the last thing I have on there is the, Craig was able to get me the PDF for the grid map for our most updated airfield map, and was able to send that out to our first responders there with, between law enforcement and fire rescue, for both counties. So emailed that to them and asked them just to please, you know, to distribute it throughout their departments as they saw fit for the areas of their departments that they knew would, you know, that this would pertain to them. So I didn't get back anything negative from that. So I'm taking that as a good sign. And that's all I have.
All right, very good. Any update, Mr.?
No, I guess I'll send out tomorrow. The fuel truck did finally make it up for auction. It's currently in, ongoing. There was some lack of communication on when that started, so I asked him to extend it 2 weeks to July 23rd. But I could send that out to all you guys so you can just at least see or monitor or whatever. It does have a reserve like $10,000 on the fuel truck. So I did find the original, I don't know if it was a title or what it was, but it just showed in 2004, the airport bought it for $30,000. So even if we could get 10 to 20, I think your overall cost of ownership is pretty low. So I think we're gonna probably do okay on it, so.
Excellent.
But if anyone has any questions, like we get towards the end, the auctioneer said he will communicate with us, like, if it's like $9,950 or whatever, we may have to remove that minimum bid or whatever, the floor on it, just so that we can get rid of it. So if that's the case, I'll reach out to everybody and make sure we're all on the same page about that. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Van Zandt?
So, city's busy getting ready for the 4th of July. Be a lot of festivities on that day, kicking off with a run that morning. So, just you can follow us on Facebook, look for the website, it'll be a good time. Pie baking contest. I got excited. I thought it was eating, but it's baked. Like you're judging the little old lady's ability to make the pie, not. There will be a hot dog eating contest, fireworks at dusk, big parade. So we're getting through all those things. As I sat here tonight, I watched a Bradford County sheriff's truck drive by twice, which is always a good sign. And the mayor had picked up on something, I don't want to put words in, somebody asked about something in the airport bylaws that said that Clay County, Clay
the
County
sheriff.
Sheriff. But I know all these sheriffs, and especially like we're in the Lake region, we're Putnam, Alachua, Bradford, Clay, they all work together. But she did send it to our city attorney, Mr. Commando, just to have him.
It was a city ordinance.
City ordinance. Okay.
Yes,
I guess that's why it landed in our lap.
yes, sir.
Things make sense. So we'll run that to ground. I don't know if all those mutual aid agreements were in effect way back when that came down, but.
Yeah, it was in 82.
Bradford, Clay, whoever wants to come out here and help you stay secure, I think that's all a good thing. But we'll revise that ordinance if we need to. And that's all I've got.
All right, I'm serving on the Friends of Keystone Heights committee that's part of the Heritage Commission as a volunteer for some of the events that are coming up. And in July, for the 4th, we should have the calendars that will be really unique about the 100th centennial for Keystone. A lot of great old photographs in it, a lot of vintage stuff and information. So there's that's going to be happening, kicking off on the 4th, as well as I think they'll have some T-shirts. They'll start selling some T-shirts and other things. And all of the funding from these is going to help pay for the big events that we're having come December the 31st of this year out here. Actually will be the big kickoff event for the 100th year celebration. So that's where those funds are going to be used for all of those special events. Obviously, July 4th next year is going to be a really big event as well. And then at the end of 2025, there will be another big event. So we're going to party the year in and party the centennial out. So and there's some other committees that if any of you have any interest on serving, volunteering on, there's a lot of folks in the city doing that as well as others outside the city. So just get with me, or Charlie can direct you to the right people as well. All right. Any other board member comments?
I don't have any.
Wow. All right. It is 7:03. We'll consider ourselves adjourned.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that you were totally closing it out.
Oh.
I was just going to do a short thing on that. I didn't realize that it was closing out. So part of getting the certified, the tree farm, I mean, we are certified, but part of getting everything reinstated was to have an interview. So I had an interview with Carlton Scott, and we did a tree farm inspection report, which was necessary to do that. So that's been done, and I completed the application that we needed. And so I think everything is pretty much set up. So we should be in good shape. Talked to him about the cost sharing, and he said definitely there was cost sharing. And he said that's about 60%. So that's pretty good. If it's not guaranteed, but we can make application. They said June, July is when that application takes place. I only had one thing I wanted to bring up, was that one of the stipulations in being part of the American Tree Farm System is you have to abide by their standards. And one of the standards is the time of replant. So maybe next month or something, I'll bring something to y'all about, we have some areas that really need to be put back into, be reforested, and just some ideas along that and some costs, and just see what the board thinks about that, and possibly moving forward on that, or scheduling it, putting it into the budget or something. So anyway, that was all I had.
Okay.
Just wanted to keep y'all up to date on what's happened with that.
Very good. Progress. Thank you. Sounds good. All right, anything else? All right, thank you very much.